one
This
thing.
we merged this thing. Improved performance of queries, adding indices. So new indices for the fields, because when you query in the fields, they are not indexed, so it's slow. It's bad. Makes sense to index this one, so that's good. And that's the only thing. On Orchard 2, much more for sure. Much more, which means
You should do a poll.
oh yes, on this computer, right? That's why. Fetch all. Let's see Orchard 1 demo. Let's focus on Orchard 1.
Yeah. So some time ago, I don't know, it was more than a year at least.
You used Orchard.
Breaking news. So we, I think I had a demo about a content field, which is called media library upload field. It's quite similar to mid-library picker field. It was influenced by that, and well, it was started as copy pasting it actually. But you know, it's about having users. Giving users the ability to upload media files if you are building a form on the front end, and it's working really nicely. And actually, when I did the demo, your question, Sebastian, was does it have dynamic forms integration? And at the time, it didn't have. It was just a regular content field. So now we have dynamic forms integration.
Once again, I have to leave you. It smells like some.
All right. So actually, I'm running a website locally that is actually running on .NET. So what I'm going to show you is available on .NET. And this is actually a website I built for a World of Warcraft guild that I'm a member of. So this is a huge dynamic form that you can fill out if you want to apply to be a member of the guild. And we have two media library upload fields here that are for uploading media files. So this particular one is for uploading a screenshot of your user interface, because it's kind of it kind of tells you about you as a player, how your UI looks like. So it's exactly the same as we have seen before, as you can use with Vim forms, for example. So it's just a regular file browser. So you can select media files just like before with the regular media library upload field, but this is a dynamic form element, and I can actually show you the actual dynamic form on the dashboard. So this is what it looks like. You can configure it just like the content field itself. So you can say that it's required, allow multiple items. You can have display name. You can restrict the file extensions, the file path, the folder path for the files, and also the file size. And you also have additional options for images. So yeah, it's pretty neat, quite useful for our purposes at least, and it's actually available as, of course, as open source in the Lombric Fields module. I'm going to paste the link into the chat. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I can actually show you the content field definition as well, but it's pretty much the same as what you can configure for the element itself.
Can you set the maximum size of the file?
Yeah, so what you can do is say that each individual file can be, in this case, 4 megabytes, maximum of 4 megabytes, and you can also restrict the total file size of all the uploaded files for this particular field. So you can say that, I don't know, this should be 100 megabytes, for example. So this is kilobytes, this is megabytes. So I can upload, 25 files that are 4 megabytes in size.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. So Antoine working on immersion field, but right now I'm not touching it. Queries improvements. improvements. I don't remember what it is. Oh no, it's been merged. Okay, it's just that it has been merged. That's it. So Nick, removing fallback packages we don't need. Yeah, cleaning the CS proj here. That's good. Jean-Thierry is working on different branches. This one is background task optimizations. Copying them, I will look at it later. He's also updating his other branches like updatable. Rustem is working on the users branch. He also made a pull request for abstracting the roles like we did for the users. What do we have? Hicham Benatea, who is famous if you follow the SQLite live meetings. Hicham Co has on GitHub updated SQL and how to use it from the data module.
It's way cleaner.
Sure. That's code. And these are some unit tests on my branch, and I will show you how it works. Users, Sebastian, care, CommonPart.CreatedUtc. It hasn't been merged yet. Yes, it has been merged. I just haven't cleaned that. So this is to take into account the creation date from the editor if you specify it. It was not taken into account, so Antoine fixed it. This I will show. Liquid queries, I improved liquid queries, I will show you. And Antoine has refreshed the admin themes branch to manage the themes. And Nick has upgraded all the NuGet packages libraries to their latest versions.
Including Lucene.
And removed the need of custom Lucene packages that we had, so new Lucene packages also. And all the things. So updated, for instance, MVC to 1.1.2, which has, for instance, security fixes. That's it, that's good. And apparently says everything still works. Well, we'll see. And he's still working on his Google Cloud thing.
There's a good thing in here though. Making recipes go from a subpath rather than an extension. Oh, that's it. Allow the starting site to have a recipes folder. About 7 down. Yeah, might be this one. Okay, so this is cool. So I changed it so that the recipes folder doesn't really rely on an extension info. Did you just pause? Oh, okay. Doesn't really rely on an extension ID anymore. It relies on a subpath. So what that means is that inside your website, you can have a recipes folder in the main host, as well as a recipes folder inside your individual extension projects. So if you want your site to have a custom recipe, then you can just have it in your site, which is quite nice.
Okay. Related to that, we need to support recipe migrations. So remember, we can have migrations using recipe files somehow. So we can have modules containing recipe files. It's like SQL scripts to migrate your databases, but with recipes. So you could rerun automatically a recipe when you update your application, like migration will do, but using recipe files. But something related, but also separate. Yep, I created this pull request here, but it's technical. It's for Jean-Thierry, who's been working on an issue we have with SQLite looking. So what I want to show you, ta-da! Okay, let me show you. I need to rebuild. So last week, the discussion was about, not sure we mentioned it here. Yeah, talked about SQL data and stuff. So SQL, I showed you a JSON document to represent SQL, and nobody liked it. And okay, and we said, oh no, we need SQL. So I worked on SQL. I worked on SQL. Let me show you when it starts, if it works, because I merged back to. So here, this branch I'm on is SQL Queries. I will show you. It's been merged already in master, and also .liquid improvements in the module. Or not maybe improvement. Yes, improvement, but also an example of how we can use that. So if I go on admin with the queries module enabled, the standard queries module enabled. If I go now to design site, we also have SQL queries now. So there was Lucene indices to show the indices. There is also Lucene queries to manage to try your Lucene queries, okay? But now there is SQL queries, which is like Lucene queries, where you can type your template, parameters, and execute the query. And there is also a link as an example. When you click, it injects a select star from content item index and returns the result. Okay, here lots of documents. And the results here is a set of records from content item index, and these records are provided as JSON document. And in the UI, serialized just to show what the result is. This could be a table. That would be nicer, like in the Lucene queries. Let me show you the Lucene queries. Organize that at a table. It's much nicer, so maybe an improvement to do. So if I click here, I have select star. What is interesting is when you type something like this, it will show you the actual SQL that was executed on database. So here we can see that the content item index table has been renamed to test53 _ content item index, so that when you create your SQL query, you don't have to care about the table prefix. So you can migrate them to others, to share them, put them in recipes, and upload that to your production server maybe, and it's a different table. That's fine. So it will be that. So it is quoted based on the current database. My current database here is a SQL Server, so it's using a SQL Server quote, and prefixed if it's a table, so here you can type anything that works in SQL. So for instance, if you want all the published, so the content item index is a SQL index for all the content items. So if you want to query content items, this is what you need to query. That's why it's the default one. And if you want only the published version, you will say where, and you will see there's a published UTC, but there is a published property. So where published equals true, you run this. And here it knows that it's not a table, so it's not prefixing it. And it found that true is a constant. So it extracted the constant as a SQL command parameter and replaced it with P0. The nice thing with that is if you happen to use this query a lot with different values, then SQL Server will be able to prepare and cache the parsing without having to parse again the query because just the value changed. So for a Boolean, it's kind of useless, but if it's an integer for like or a date that can change from the parameters, that's more interesting. Yeah, so that's what it does. And you see here we have less results because it's only published. You can have also just a set of values, like for instance document ID. If you just want the documents that are represented by this content item, you just select that, and you have EC document ID only. Okay, and you can also use aliases like doc ID, and it will be doc ID. And you see here also it's finding that it's not a table. Or you can do table.field, and it will find that the table has to be prefixed and the field doesn't have to be prefixed. So it works. You can type almost everything you want. Something interesting also is that Let me show you. I have a tenant here. I have a tenant called test, which is running on SQLite. So if I do the same thing on a SQLite database, same query, you see it's quoted for SQLite, and it still works. Okay, but yeah, so it's kind of HQL, but yeah, it's kind of HQL, but for Orchard or / SQL, whatever you want. For Orchard, let's say for Orchard. And it will convert it to actual SQL. Sorry. Something that shows really that it's HQL, let me show you, is when you want, for instance, all, oh yes, I have that prepared. Let me show you a nice query that you can do. Archive. Let's say you want to build an archive widget to list all the blog posts or any content item or content type from a specific month or year or whatever. The query you would use is this one. Select month created UTC. So I'm selecting from content item index, okay? And I'm using the month and year of created UTC field. And I'm naming them month and year. Okay. This syntax is not just SQL Server. It's just you can use that or double quote. It's the same in the input. Okay. It will work for everything. It will be converted to whatever it needs to be. So the month, the year, and the number of content items which are published, and grouped by month and year. So if I run that, you get here. Select month as month. Month is a SQL Server function. Okay, since SQL Server 2012, I think. Before it was date part of something. And you see here group by something where so it works, extracted the parameter as well. And here we have just one result, which is month, 5, year 2017, and 7 content items because I created all my content items this month. That's why I only have one result, but just to show you that it works. And it took 1.5 milliseconds to run it because I'm running in debug mode. It's usually much less than 1 millisecond, like 0.6 milliseconds to run this query. It's pure SQL, okay? The overhead of parsing it is very, very small. And if I take the same query on SQLite, there is no month method in SQLite. So it will do select cast that blah, blah, blah as integer as month, and you get the same result. Okay. But this is the query you will need to write in SQLite. It's more complicated. And that's why it's like HQL, because you can register the methods that will be called in the original, in the source SQL, and how to convert them based on the dialect to the different databases. So SQL Server, Postgre, and MySQL have the month method, but SQLite doesn't have it. So month, year, and they are implemented in SQL. So let me show you, for instance, if I do also A, but if then I do, okay, sorry, day, but if I go to hour, for instance, which is also defined in the language here, you will see that it's not defined in SQL Server. So what did I do wrong? Oh yeah, I can't use that. And also you see, that's nice because you get the SQL error from this one. It just says that I need to do that, group by day and group by hour. Otherwise I can't use it in the select query. And you will see here that the year is calling year, the day is calling day. But for the other ones, the smaller ones, you need to call date part of something. And again, it's different in SQLite. So these ones are handled automatically, month, year, day, hour, and we can add more as we want, as we need. Okay. So that's good. So this is sample usage. So I will just go in content and queries, and you will see that I've already created the archives query, because the queries now, when you do add query, you can select a Lucene query or a SQL query, and then later you can have all the ones you want from the UI or from anything, from a custom DSL. It's completely extensible. So if I go to the archive, archives one is this one, so the select month and year, okay? And this option is to let you return the SQL documents directly from the SQL. So this one is returning a JSON document with the month and year property. But if you want to express a query that returns content items or any other document, like users, settings, anything, then you could check that, and you just need the request to the query to return document IDs. So in this case, it will be select document ID from content item index. So the query will return a list of integers, and then this list of integers will be queried to get the documents by ID, and you will get objects that you can return or use directly, and it's very useful. So now if I go to content items, so I have an archives query, and I made an archives page, okay, a liquid page. It's a liquid page. So I made one, an archive liquid page, and this one, like I showed you last week for the Lucene query, is a template here, and so it's a liquid template, and what it does is calling queries.archives, because it's the archives query. This one is a SQL one, but it could be a Lucene one, it could be anything, it's by name. And the objects I get is a list of objects with a year property and a month property. So what it does here is just, because they're ordered by year and month, it just creates a new LI every time there is a new year, and for each month it's creating another LI inside the year. And then it's doing a case. If it's the month 1 to 12, it's rendering the name of the month, okay? And then showing the count of the archive, and that's it. And we could have a link to another page to display the list of items, but that's it. And then if you do preview, which I fixed also, you can see that it works. So 2017, oh, I just checked that we have live refresh because it was broken, I fixed it, so May 7. Okay, so now you can create it. And I run the performance test without any cache on this page, which is running the SQL query, parsing and running it, and then evaluating the liquid page also without any cache. And I got around 2,000 requests per second with very small TTL. So it's slower than a page which just renders a blog post because there is no query, just by ID, but it's still very, very fast. That's it, I think, for the most questions. Maybe how it was done would be interesting to show you. Did I miss anything? Okay, chat.
No, it looks awesome. We were just talking about security on cross tenants.
Sure, sure. Well, what did you say then? Because it's very secure. Unless we find a security issue, and then it's not secure.
I was saying that I don't think that we should have cross-tenant queries, but other people say that we...
No. I'm saying that, no, we can't, we should not. If you want
other people are talking about a superintendent feature, like Bertrand was saying, it's...
Then make a feature, but this thing has to work on multi-tenancy, so we can't expose data from other tenants. Ask Benedek. As Benedek is left, no, he's there. He's doing the nest. If one tenant can execute queries on other tenants, I mean, what? No.
Yeah, it would be.
And that's why we have this feature that auto prefixes the things. So you can't write any insert update or anything first on this parser. If you try to write something like this, or even a select into is not recognized, so it won't be able to execute that. And the parameters are also parsed and quoted so that you can't inject SQL into your own SQL, so that the engine will run injected SQL, and you can go through that. And we prefix all the tables, so you can only access the ones from your tenant.
I will say that I do like the idea of a superintendent kind of thing. When you look at like, what is it, AWS, where you can say, run this command on all instances. It's kind of the same with tenancy, where you can say, run, enable this module on all instances, run this query on all. So maybe we want to think about that in the future.
Maybe the supertenant could, the tenant manager tenant could be able to do that.
Yeah.
That's actually something we do in the hosting suite.
So, for instance, in Weblogs ASP.NET, we have this issue that the main tenant needs to expose the list of all the existing tenants, and maybe we won't like to. And it can also run recipes on all the existing tenants. So, maybe the supertenant tool could have more powers to do anything in different.
I don't think that we should have something called I don't think the tenant itself should be a superintendent tenant, but I think we should have a superintendent feature or something like that. I still think tenants should be very highly sandboxed. But yeah, there's got to be a way around it. I don't really want to compromise that our security.
Yeah, the parameters, yes, I thought about making it because you don't want to see it if you don't use it. You don't usually use it. UI to be improved. Landlord. Yes, nested queries are allowed, and I have unit tests for that. Null and everything, so I will show you the implementation after. The only thing I completely forgot to implement is the limit/offset, which is super easy to do, but I forgot to parse it. Like you can do a SQL specific, like SQLite or SQL Server specific queries, it will work, but I want an abstract way to do that with a limit and offset parameter that will be converted to the underlying database. So I need to do that, but it's very easy. Okay, good. Yes, so how did I do that? So this didn't change, I just changed the editor, nothing special here. The code. Well, so it's in the queries module. By default, I didn't create a different module for it. It's a feature, but I didn't create a different module. I'm not sure. Because the database will always be with the queries module, whereas Lucene is or is not enabled. So the queries are only enabled if Lucene is enabled. So the main thing is this thing, the SQL grammar. So this is a grammar for SQL that is using the irony framework. So maybe you've heard of that. It's a nice thing. It's like, so if you know the BNF grammar, Bacchus, nor format or whatever. So you define a grammar very easily, but with irony, you define it with classes and statements in C#. Instead of a grammar file that has to be parsed and will generate the lexer tokenizer. So here it's dynamic. So you define a class and dynamically it will interpret these rules while in it. So the grammar itself is kind of simple. And the nice thing with that, with irony, is it works on .NET, on .NET Core. Someone ported irony on .NET Core. And they had a SQL grammar as an example with all the updates and inserts and everything. So I just had to remove all the things I didn't want to support on purpose. I fixed some bugs, but not that many. For instance, for the, like Sergio asked, the inner SQL or the nested SQL queries, nested select queries, it was not supported, so I did that. Fixed some little things, and otherwise, almost everything was working out of the box. So I took this file, and then I made a SQL parser class that will interpret whatever is parsed to generate the correct SQL using the direct. So you see here, evaluate select statement. It's writing a select, then looking at restrictions like distinct, unique, then the select list, the from, where, group, having, order. I need to add limit offset now. And you see it's writing the SQL dynamically and using the dialect every time we need to do something special. Like for the function, it's converting them to the correct SQL function, and so on. You see? So this was the hardest part here, to generate the correct SQL based on database, and after parsing it. And then the standard query and query source to represent the SQL thing in the database. And that's it. So what I did also is it's not on this branch. On this branch. Check. Oh yes, it is on. No, yes, it is on this branch. Also, I talked about it last week, but I created dynamic permissions for each query, either it's Lucene or SQL. Now you can say manage queries, like the administrator has, to create queries, edit them, run them. And then you have a query to execute the API for the queries. Okay, same thing the administrator has done by default, not the anonymous. So you can't execute the queries from the API if you don't have this permission. Or you can also enable the permission for each query. Okay, so this way you can create all the queries you want as predefined queries, and you can expose some of them for the API. Okay, and then they will for each, or for anonymous, or for a custom role which will be assigned to a client application, whatever you want. I think this is very useful. And yes, those SQL queries also work on the API query. So let me show you if I go there.
Did you get the irony code from Coplex or GitHub?
No, I will show you the link I used, because there are two of them on GitHub. So API / oh, I will have it on the main one already there. You see queries, recent blog post. This is the Lucene one that returns the JSON document. And if I do archives, you see here month, year, count. So, and if you use the API directly like this and not the UI and the liquid and everything, you get like 6,000 requests per second or more. I'm sure I was limited by some local web server, but not the database. And yeah, that's super fast. So here I'm debugging, so it makes the thing much slower, but it should be like 3, 4, 5 milliseconds to get the result, and you can have thousands of requests per second on things like this. So that's very useful if we want to integrate that with static websites or SPA applications or other clients who need some data that you need to expose to the clients, and there is no module for that. Imagine you want to integrate many applications, and Orchard contains some content that you want to expose in another thing. Then you can just create a query specifically for this application, then use OpenID to authenticate this application and to be sure that it has the rights to enable to execute this query, and then your application will be able to do that. I think that opens very good, very great scenarios. That's it. So Nick asking about where I took this from, and this is from, if I look into the NuGet config file.
Is it this guy called DaxNet?
Yes.
Ah, okay, cool.
So this is...
It doesn't seem to be a very... I mean, it looks like an awesome project, but it doesn't seem to be maintained.
No, but more than the official Irony project on Codeplex, which hasn't changed in 3 years, which is good, which means it works. It's been working for 3
years.
I mean, sometimes no changes means just.
I mean, it's still got 5 stars on, I think, on Codeplex, so it can't be bad.
So this guy, ported the Codeplex on GitHub and also ported the code on .NET Core. So that's why we could use it. And I mean, I tried with SQL. I have so many unit tests. I tried all the scenarios. Let me show you. Okay, so test SQL. So Sergio, if you have some requirements, just try some unit tests, and you will see if they are supported. Select, you see all the select you can have, min, select distinct, then the from, standard form, from, where with expressions, and let me show you the expressions. It will, you see where A equals B or C equals D with all the things you can imagine. From join, you can do joins, all the type of joins you want, order by, ASC, DSC, group by, and I showed you that it was working. Having comments. I don't have a unit test for. Yes, I must have a unit test for inner SQL queries, nested selects. I'm sure I have one because I implemented that on purpose, so I needed one test. Oh, any. If I look for any, not any, some, crap. Crap, I thought I had done one. I did in. Nope, well, then I need to add one. Can't find it. Okay, but yeah, irony. That's very good. It works. Very easy to change the code, restart, boom, it works. That's it. Questions? It doesn't support unions. I know it doesn't support unions yet. It needs to be parsed and evaluated. So that, yeah, I see that we need to do that. Please file an issue for unions, and you can say what you want, and we'll see. Specific queries. Okay, no questions? Good. Oh, and they don't. So Lucene, you can execute Lucene queries. So there are two APIs for Lucene queries. There is the queries API where you can run a named query, and there is also ad hoc Lucene queries that you can run. So you can hit, if you have a permission, the Lucene specific endpoint when you can pass a Lucene query directly in the request. And it can be any Lucene query you want, and you will just be able to get content items, okay? Because only content items are indexed. For SQL, I didn't do that. I didn't allow any endpoint to run ad hoc SQL queries. We never know. So I prefer just to limit it to the predefined SQL queries from the admin. It seemed too dangerous to me to allow any SQL queries as you. Yeah, I'm not sure I want that. So for content items, we have Lucene queries, ad hoc Lucene queries. Otherwise, the queries have to be created by the editor and exposed on the API. That's it. So, yep, field, SQL queries, topics.
Nope.
What issues did we have this week? I can explain the issue we had. Yep.
I've got one. Shell settings. Did we speak about moving those to iConfigurable? iConfiguration, sorry?
You can.
Yeah? Okay, cool.
Yeah, we talked about it, so that's good idea. So if
I need to use it now anyway, so
don't put it on your Google thing, put it separately.
I actually need to use it for that, but yeah, I'll
you can create another branch and merge it to your Google thing.
No, I'll do it separately.
What else? Discussions, topics. So we found a bug we found a bug. Someone named I will. Found a bug that if you enable and disable a feature and use SQLite, then there will be a lock and there will be an exception. And tried many things, tried to find many things, and I think I found the issue. It's interesting. So DB locking. So what happening is that you will enable a feature, and then SQLite will say that database is locked, and then the request will time out and done. And then you execute a new request, and then it works. But the request that tried to disable or enable the feature failed. So it happened because, so I found this morning the issue and I fixed it. The issue is that when you have a request which starts, we create a scope, which like a lifetime scope in Orchard.One with AutoFac. It's a scope services, or list of scope services. And then at the end of the request, we dispose the scope. Okay. And inside the scope, you will have the I session. One I session, you will have all the scope services, but the one which is interesting here is the session, the database thing. Okay. So we'll have like a connection, and it will a transaction, and at the end of the scope, it will commit the transaction. Okay. That's what it does. But what we have also is we have something called deferred tasks. The deferred tasks is a list of lambdas that will be executed after the request is done in a different scope. The idea is that when you are in processing your request and all the events of your modules, you might know there is something to be done at the end after everything is committed or rollbacked, and then this is what you use, a deferred task. Deferred. And what the issue was is that actually the deferred task was running here at some point here, right before the dispose, but before the dispose. And this task will create a new scope. And then if in this task you would resolve an I session, which will do a write, so this one hasn't been committed yet, so the transaction is still open. And this one creates another transaction which will write something. And the second one will say, well, I'm waiting for someone, this one, to release the lock on the table to be able to write. So this one will be locked, waiting for this one to release the lock. But this one will only release when this one is done. So it's called a deadlock. And then the request timeout. This was actually the issue. And to fix it, now what I'm doing is the deferred task before creating a new scope will dispose the current running scope and replace the current running scope by this new one, so that when this one is disposed, it's actually disposing the deferred task scope. So it's like when we do this transaction, we demand a new transaction, we commit the existing one and replace the current one by a new one. So deferred task will now, if needed, create a new one and replace the current one by the new one. So they won't be nested, they will be disposed and recreated, and in the end recreated. And that fixed the issue. So that's good. The second thing I implemented is that something which is also related is when we have a request that restarts, changes the features list. The request will we call the shell context, which represents the container, which contains the container of the full application, all the singleton services and all the configuration for the current tenant. So when it disposes that, when a request disposes that, the request will say, for instance, try remove and then dispose. It will dispose the main container. But it will dispose the main container, but we also have deferred tasks to be run right after maybe, and we have. So it will actually dispose and then create a new one. But it's disposing the main container from one request. But if we have 100 customers running on the website, maybe there are many other requests which are currently using scopes from this context, and we are deleting it. And maybe then this request will fail because they tried to access some singletons. So all these requests will fail. We are just like killing the website and all the requests running, and this is bad. So now what it's doing is it's not disposing it right away. It's just marking the context which has been removed as released and removing it from the collection so that new request will get a new one. But the running requests, which are using the existing one, will now count themselves as +1 or -1 as they release, as they stop. And when the shell context is marked as released, and it will reach a request ref count as 0, then it will dispose itself. So the last request to finish will release the container, which is no more referenced by anyone. And if those requests fail, whatever, then the container will be ultimately finalized by the garbage collector, because no one will reference it either. That's what was hard to do this week. And it fixes more issues that we could not have found otherwise without SQLite. That's good. Something else. So Isham Benateya, who wrote the data refactoring on SQL, also implemented the InMemory provider that uses the SQLite engine by just setting. So when you say, where is that? When you say use InMemory instead of use SQLite, it will use a data source memory, and then you will use a SQLite database, InMemory database. So there is no option right now on the setup screen to use this option because if you stop your tenant, then you lose all your data. So, but as long as your tenant is running, then everything will be in memory. That enables a scenario, for instance, for .nest. So when you want to try out Orchard, you could just use an in-memory database, so it won't even create a SQLite file or a SQL server set of prefixes, whatever, and just use the database in memory. And then when the tenant is stopped and cleared, then
we should add this in and wrap it in a is development. That would be super useful, dude.
But if you restart, you lose everything, right?
That's okay. But in a lot of instances, that's what we want.
I was thinking about something else, even better. We could also have that with an automatic flush to disk, because there is an API on SQLite to copy instances of databases, including memory, back and forth. The idea will be on startup, it will load the SQLite database from disk to memory and work all the time in memory. And every few minutes on specific events, we could flush the database onto disk to do a backup of the running system. You don't have to do it on each request, but you could do it every hour or maybe when we create a content item, I don't know, just flush the memory on a file. So when we restart, we don't lose the changes. And we still have the perf of in-memory database, but with the backup of the changes. So that could be also something to do as a specific module or a specific provider. Yeah, it's good for tests for sure. Like spec flow test, that's still something. Okay, that's much faster and less maintenance. But yeah, we could have also an hybrid mode which is actually using the memory, but flushing and saving snapshots on the file system at some point in time. That could be great for performance. And yeah, I haven't tried a difference in terms of perf in throughput between let's say something like SQL Server and SQLite in memory. The nice thing is that there is no network latency and there is no disk access compared to local SQLite. So maybe that could be interesting to test that, the perf difference with this in-memory thing. To be continued. Good? Questions? Okay, done then. Thanks everyone. See you on Thursday.